Being 7 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bospas.
Here.
Commissioner Baker.
Here.
Commissioner Collins. Commissioner Gary.
Here.
Commissioner Miller.
Here.
Commissioner Talentino.
Here.
Commissioner Twardy.
Here.
Commissioner Talentino.
So moved to excuse Commissioner Collins.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. We have a proclamation to give out and also a recognition. So we'll do the proclamation first. If I could have Jessica Miles, domestic violence prevention educator from the Diane Pepler. We have a City of Sault Ste. Marie proclamation, Sexual Assault Awareness Month, April 2019. Whereas the statistics surrounding sexual assault are staggering, where 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men experience some form of contact sexual violence in their lifetime. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before they turn 18 years old, and sexual assault affects men, women, and children of all racial, cultural, and economic backgrounds. And whereas annually rape costs the U.S. more than any other crime, roughly about $127 billion. Sexual assault may also have associated consequences of post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse, depression, homelessness, eating disorders, and suicide. And whereas sexual assault can be devastating for not only the survivor, but also for the family and friends of the survivor. At the Diane Pepler Resource Center, survivors are provided help to rebuild and rejuvenate their life after trauma through services like counseling, civil legal assistance, housing assistance, safe shelter, and so much more. And whereas no one person, organization, or agency can eliminate sexual assault on their own, but the community working together to educate the population about sexual violence prevention, supporting survivors and their families, increasing support for the agencies that provide support services, and challenging the language that promotes the rape culture. And whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month provides an excellent opportunity for the communities to learn more about preventing sexual violence, how to get prevention education within the schools, and to hopefully increase the number of conversations our community can have about healthy relationships. And whereas a commitment to ensuring the safety of the citizens in the county through policy reviews, updating policies, and education of self, youth, and communities. Everyone deserves to feel safe from violence in their county, communities, and relationships. Now, therefore, be it known that I, Anthony G. Bospas, Mayor of the City of Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2019 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in the City of Sault Ste. Marie. In witness thereof, I hereby set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Sault Ste. Marie to be affixed this first day of April of 2019. Anthony G. Bospas, Mayor. And I'll give you this, Jessica, and if you'd like to say a few words, we'd appreciate it.
I do.
Oh, okay, I'll take it.
Yep, one for everybody on the board. And Robin. Thank you all for proclaiming April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. For the month of April, we are offering plenty of opportunities to learn more about sexual violence and how we as individuals can prevent it. These opportunities are free for the community to attend. On April 4th at 7 p.m. in the Sizzler Center at LSSU, there's an adult-oriented presentation called No Zebras, No Excuses. That will start at 7 p.m. On April 12th at 6 p.m. in the library at LSSU, we are having an internationally known speaker, Mike Domish. He is coming to speak on creating a culture of respect. It is family-friendly, so please bring out the whole family to this. And then on April 16th and 17th, we are doing a training at the Quaidon Casino on a coordinated community response to domestic violence with Marcus Bruning. Also, an open mic night on April 27th at 7 p.m. to show support, talents, and have a good time with community members at the 1668 Winery. I strongly encourage the community to attend these free events to gain more insight into these topics. Yes, these topics can be very uncomfortable to talk about, but before we can prevent violence, we must first understand it. It is time for us, the leaders, to start the footwork to change our culture in our community. We can no longer put these pressures on the younger generation. We must lead by example and show the importance of prevention before the youth will follow suit. We can no longer afford to be an ostrich with our head in the sands about these issues. We need to show up and gain the understanding, speak out against these issues, and commit to making our community a safer place for everyone in it. We need to start by protecting our community members from harassment, holding perpetrators responsible, believing survivors that come forward regardless of their gender identity or sexual orientation, checking our own unconscious biases, and changing the culture that allows, or challenging the culture that allows violence to continue to permeate our community. I cannot do it alone. I need you and the community members to show up and lead the change. What we do and say today has a great effect on our futures. Together, we can prevent sexual violence in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Just the events and opportunities list, is that being published online, or is it?
We do have event pages on our website and on our Facebook pages. Inside the bags is a list of all of the events that we have coming up in April for you guys. And then I also have it on the Sioux Events Facebook page as well.
Okay, so anyone wanting to get information, Sioux Events webpage?
Yep, they have it on there. The Sexual Violence Prevention Team of the EUP on Facebook has the events for Mike Domish coming and has all the information on that one. The April 16th and 17th one, if they want to register, they just have to call the shelter at 635-0566, and we can send them the link to register for those trainings. And the April 4th one is at the college, and it's just free to anybody that wants to show up. And it talks about sexual assault, alcohol, and who's responsible for consent.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we also have recognition, and we have police officer swearing in. City Manager Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I would invite Police Chief Riley to come to the front.
Evening, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'd like to start out first by thanking Captain Larson. As you know, I was off for several weeks, and he was appointed acting chief of the department. I've had nothing but outstanding positive comments from other department heads and officers on the department on the job that he did. So I'd like to thank Captain John Larson. He didn't know that was coming. We're here tonight to swear in our newest officer. I believe we have family in the audience.
Yep. Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, sister.
Outstanding. I'll turn it over to Robin, and she'll do the oath of office, and then I will do the oath of honor.
You can come up here. Come on up here.
Mom needs to get up. You can go back.
No, come on.
Go back.
Come on, come on, Mom. You only get one chance right here.
Are you ready? Do you raise your right hand? I do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of office of police officer in and for the city of Sault Ste. Marie, county of Chippewa, and state of Michigan, according to the best of my abilities.
I swear.
Congratulations.
Jacob is a lifelong resident of the city of Sault Ste. Marie, graduate of LSSU. He tells me he's single. I don't know if we have a girlfriend in the audience or not. Okay, we'll leave that out. Raise your right hand. On my honor, I will never betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or the public trust.
On my honor, I will never betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or the public trust.
I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for their actions.
I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for their actions.
I will always uphold the Constitution, my community, and the agency I serve.
I will always uphold the Constitution, my community, and the agency I serve.
Commission, I'd like to present Officer Jacob Friedrich.
Welcome. Congratulations.
Okay, best wishes to Jacob and rest of the force. We thank you for your service. Item C, public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on an agenda item tonight, if they'd like to identify themselves, if you're not already on the agenda, do so at this time. And when we get on at that agenda item, you'll give it a chance to speak on it. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on an agenda item? Okay, moving on. D, the consent agenda. Yes.
Under the consent agenda, 1, approval of the City Commission meeting minutes of March 18th, 2019. Item 2, acceptance of the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority meeting minutes of June 12th, 2018. Item 3, acceptance of the Community Services Board meeting minutes of February 26, 2019. Item 4, consideration of an ordinance amending Section 8-190 definitions of the city's Code of Ordinance to classify rented mobile homes located within state licensed mobile home parks as residential rental properties for the purposes of administering the city's rental registration program. Item 5, authorization of a contract with the state of Michigan for the annual purchase of road salt. Item 6 is adoption of Parking Bureau policy on lost ticket fee. And item 7 is the approval of the consent agenda items as presented.
Okay. Is there a commissioner who would like something further explained on the consent agenda? Commissioner Twardy?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Mayor Bosmas,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Gary,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino,
Yes.
Commissioner Twardy.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item E, special orders of business. 1, adoption of an ordinance amending local fireworks regulations.
Okay, thank you. City Manager Turner.
Thank you, Mayor Bospas. As commissioners are aware, during the last lame duck session, legislation was adopted and enacted by the state of Michigan regarding fireworks. Specifically, this legislation reduces the number of days each year on which fireworks can be used without prohibition by local governments from roughly 30 days to 12 days. The legislation was enacted in response to concerns from citizens throughout the state who do not like fireworks or whose pets do not respond well to fireworks. City Attorney Cannello has drafted the included ordinance to update existing provisions regulating fireworks to more closely align with the new state statute. The draft ordinance has been placed on the agenda in the event the City Commission wishes to adopt the same, and it received a first reading at the last regular meeting. Otherwise, the ordinance could be referred back to City Administration for further review. I believe City Attorney Cannello will also be presenting on this issue.
Okay. City Attorney.
As Mr. Turner's indicated, the legislature has amended the fireworks law that they previously adopted in 2000, I think it was 2013. At that time, they prohibited local regulation of the firing off or shooting off or of fireworks. between the hours of 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. on most holidays. So that meant that we couldn't prohibit fireworks on those holidays from being used between the hours of 8 a.m. and 1 a.m. And there was quite a number of those holidays. They've since amended that section and are now allowing us to regulate between the hours of 8 a.m. and 1 a.m., but only to a limited extent. So in subsection C of the amended ordinance, we are going to allow people to set off fireworks between 11 a.m. and 11:45 p.m. So as you can see, that's a 3-hour difference in the morning of no fireworks and an hour and 15 minutes addition of no fireworks time on the holidays. So that's substantially what's being modified. So the ordinance, section A and B of the new ordinance are the same as A and B of the old. You can't fire off fireworks and litter someone else's property with the falling fireworks. And you can't set off fireworks on any public or private property without the permission of the owner. That's part of the original ordinance that we drafted back in 2013. But we also, part of the original ordinance and what we're continuing is that for some special events, a permit can be acquired from the clerk. Now, what would those permits be acquired for? Well, to shoot fireworks on public property would be one. 2, to change the hours so that they could be shot off earlier than 11 a.m. or later than 11:45 p.m. Some of you may recall at the Millennium celebration, that was a New Year's Eve celebration for the year 2000, 99 moving to 2000. That happens at midnight. So you would need a permit to celebrate something like that because you would want to shoot your fireworks off at midnight. But this ordinance would prohibit it after 11:45. So that's the purpose of the permit section. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Commissioner Miller.
How much would those permits cost?
That would have to be established by the city commission in its fee schedule, and I don't know if that's established presently. So since no fee is, assuming no fee is established for it, then it would be 0.
Commissioner Miller, would you like to make a motion, or?
Thank you, Your Honor. I move to adopt the included ordinance amending local fireworks regulation as presented.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Commissioner Torti?
Yes.
Mayor Bospas?
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you.
Item F, Communications 1 from the Economic Development Corporation, LSSU, Sea-Free Brownfield Grant and Loan Proposal.
Thank you very much. City Manager Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, I would invite EDC Executive Director Holt to address the City Commission and community.
Sure. Evening, Jeff.
Good evening, Mayor, Commission. Thank you for this opportunity. I would like to propose that the City Commission approve the submittal of a brownfield grant and loan submitted to the Department of Environmental Quality for the carbide dock on behalf of the Sea-Free project. The Brownfield Authority met on March 22nd, and the board unanimously approved support to move forward with the collaborative efforts to assist Lake State in applying for this grant loan program through the MDEQ. This is a proposal, and if approved at tonight's meeting, we'll begin legal review with the city attorney and work on a potential agreement. With me, I have Ashley Murky from Lake State, Erica Newland, Maury Walworth, and Megan Weber from the Brownfield Authority, and then Mac McClellan, their consultant. And they will do a brief presentation for you. That's okay. Matt, who do you want to start with? This is Erica Newland from Lake State.
Evening, Erica.
Good evening. First, thank you very much, Mayor Basbas, Mr. Turner, Mr. Cannell, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you to Mr. Holt for that brief introduction. As Mr. Holt mentioned, last Friday, we gave a similar presentation to the Brownfield Development Board on an opportunity to collaborate with Lake State to submit a proposal of an approximately $1.5 million grant/loan proposal to the Michigan DEQ.
Erica?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's for the folks listening at home.
Oh,
Okay, thanks.
apologize for that. So we are here tonight to do a brief presentation similar to the presentation that we did last Friday, an overview of where I think everybody here is pretty familiar with the CFRE project, but we are looking to help support some additional cost, site costs that are eligible for brownfield dollars. We've identified the Michigan Department of DEQ opportunity, grant loan opportunity that we've been working to develop a proposal for. The university itself is not an eligible applicant, hence the reason we reached out to our local Brownfield Development Authority Board for the opportunity to collaborate as an applicant, and then hopefully as funding comes down the pipeline to facilitate the work under that. So, like I just mentioned, I know everybody here is fairly familiar with CFRE. Dr. Ashley Murky is here with us tonight to give maybe just a brief update on where CFRE is, and then our wonderful consultant we've been working with, Matt McClellan, is going to walk through how the partnership between the university and the Brownfield Development Authority can potentially work together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Erica. Hi, thank you. It's good to be back again. I feel like, I probably have a couple more visits, I'm sure, before this project is actually done. But it's nice because since I last was here, we have actually gone through a strategic planning session for the Center for Freshwater Research and Education, or as we all call it now, CFRE. And during that, we have created a new vision, and our vision is to inspire our community and sustain our Great Lakes. And our mission is really, along with that, it's this idea that we want to partner with different organizations in order to do that. And so I think tonight is really about one more example. We've already been here, we're partnering with the city already, and we continue to look for partnerships. Partnering with the EDC to pursue this grant is really an important opportunity for us to create a facility that I think is going to really be a change for this community. So just to remind you of what kind of our mission is that we're really about Great Lakes research and education and trying to engage our community in understanding the importance of that resource. And so we do that through multiple ways. One of those is through our research capacity. If you're not familiar with what we've accomplished, just in the last 6 years, we've partnered or led efforts on over $12 million in research funding that has brought in a number of research positions annually to this region. Just this year, we're partnering on nearly $700,000 in research funding, and we have created already for CFRE, we've created 3 positions that are entirely funded off of our grants that are full-time professional level salaried positions. So we're already seeing in the first 6 months some really great economic growth. We're also trying to focus on what we see right out the window, which is the resource in our backyard, and creating partnerships with agencies that are going to be able to make sure that we're managing our fisheries, that we're protecting our water quality, that we're creating recreational opportunities from now into the future in this region. And then as I think I've been here to talk about before, and I believe you all quite well understand well, is that this is a tremendous benefit to our community, that we see this really as continuing to make the Sioux a destination for visitors, but also providing a kind of an improved quality of life, of giving people a resource where they can engage in what we have to offer this community, which is the water that surrounds us. We think that this is going to lead to increased enrollment in the university because it's going to attract students who are interested in freshwater research from areas of underwater robotics to environmental chemistry to fisheries that we already do well. And we also think that this means that it's going to draw people to the downtown region and really promote the wonderful city that we live in. So we're really excited about the opportunity to partner with the EDC and the city on the Brownfield grant, because this is going to allow us to continue to kind of work on building the facility that we have originally proposed, which is what we would like to do. So I'm going to turn over to Mac to talk about the site development and the planning for this grant, but certainly after I'd be happy to take questions about our progress too.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ashley.
I'll put this up to geek mode here, I guess. But as the stranger in town, I'll introduce myself briefly. I'm Mac McClelland. I'm with Otwell Mobby. We're a small environmental consulting firm with our world headquarters in Traverse City, Michigan. My brownfield career started in 1997 when I was the Deputy County Administrator of Grand Traverse County and started the Brownfield Authority there and did most of the projects in downtown. Kind of found that I had a passion for brownfield development and went into the consulting world about it. This will be my 23rd MDEQ brownfield granted loan that I've worked on, so I'm old, so I got a lot of experience, and have done about 60 brownfield plans throughout the state. I work mostly, or all in northern Michigan. I've been the consultant for Marquette, City Marquette, for 10 years, and I've done all the projects over there as well. So I have a little bit of background, and I'll turn this to see what the heck I'm going to say. As you know, the Lake State acquired the property from the city for the Union Carbide property for the development of this project. And there was some environmental work that was done. Tri-Media, who I've worked with and got the referral to with Lake State's, identified areas of contamination, as you can imagine, on that site. The geotechnical analysis also identified a whole bunch of debris that was on that site as well. So there is contamination on that site that needs to be addressed in terms of that redevelopment, and a whole bunch of rubble, basically, that you can't build on. So those are the kind of complications of this site that were somewhat over and above what was anticipated for the project as well. So there is going to be, there needs to be a significant amount of removal of the soil on the site because it's impacted or it's contaminated and it's unstable. You can't build on top of it. And so that has to be taken away. There's also special foundations because of that unstable soil that has to be used as well for the property. So we have four kind of primary activities. That's the removal of that soil, excavation and disposal. It has to be disposed of in a type 2 landfill as well. The differential between standard or conventional foundations and special foundations. Because some of the levels of volatile organic compounds in the soil exceed vapor intrusion criteria, a vapor mitigation system needs to be installed, which is basically kind of a reverse drain field underneath that draws out those gases, and so they don't intrude into the building, and a vapor barrier between the building as well. And also some additional investigation that needs to happen to make certain that we've dealt with all of the contamination appropriately. Based on those items, we've prepared a budget, worked with the environmental consultants, Tri-Media and Spence Brothers, the construction managers, to build this budget and identify the needs. The two big ticket items, as we say, are the transport and disposal of contaminated soils at about $600,000, and that special foundation difference at about $400,000. We've also, as well as the vapor mitigation system. So we're going to be addressing all of those environmental issues through this proposed brownfield grant and loan. As Erica mentioned, there are only opportunities for local governments or brownfield authorities to apply for these loans. The university is not an eligible applicant, and so that's the proposal for the partnership with the Brownfield Authority with your concurrence as well. The maximum grant amount that's available is $1 million, but you can get up to a grant for $1 million and a loan for up to $1 million. And so the grant is pretty straightforward. The DEQ has a really seamless system. They work very effectively. There's no match for that grant, and there's a system that works very, very well. Limited actual activities, so it's pretty clear in terms of what happens with that. And the loan is where a lot of excitement comes in because you have to repay the loan. And because the Brownfield Authority is the applicant and the city has to secure that loan, that's certainly of concern and something that you want to take care of. We want to talk through that a little bit. But the basic fundamental idea is that Lake States will agree through a contract to repay that loan. So you will have the obligation, and we'll come back with a resolution if we're successful in moving to the next stage for a resolution which says for you to secure that loan. But again, through a contractual arrangement with Lake States, they would repay the loan. Lake State and I will be preparing all of the proposal and application process. We're trying to make this as seamless as possible as we can and make certain that it works through. All of the environmental response activities will be contracted by Lake State as well. I did a very early project back in the late 90s where it used to be the DEQ wanted the community to contract for the services. And I said, as the deputy county administrator, I said, I don't want to contract for high-risk services on somebody else's property. So Lake State will be holding all of those contracts. And what the Brownfield Authority will be doing is monitoring those activities, receiving the payments that will occur, and they'll pay for all of those activities up front, Lake State will, and then seek reimbursement as a pass-through through the Brownfield Authority. And also the Lake State is obligated to meet all of the stipulations of the MDQ grant and loan contract that the city holds. So the Brownfield Authority, as well, and the city, will authorize the submittal of the proposal as well, arrange for the accounting and disbursement of those dollars, hopefully support and facilitate the work that we would do through the Planning Commission if it has to go through a CIP process as well, and with you. And submit the quarterly reports that Lake States prepares for that reimbursement. And then once those funds are received, disperse those MDEQ grant dollars back to Lake State. Just kind of a quick timeline, or kind of an idea of a timeline. We have prepared the proposal. We did present it to the Brownfield Authority on March 22nd when this presentation was prepared. Have submitted the draft for review, and the MDEQ, this is an early step in the process. We want sure indication that we can move forward on this process. But hopefully the DEQ will get back with us with that proposal and say, yes, we like the proposal, we'll set the dollar value and invite a full application at that time. So from that point, we'll prepare that application, we'll prepare the resolution for your consideration, and also that DEQ grant implementation agreement that we'll work with council on to have that. I've done about 15 of them. They're pretty standard. MDEQ has the formats with them as well. But we'll work through that and make certain that all of your concerns would be met with that. Hopefully we can come back at the May 7th commission meeting for you to consider that resolution to apply for the grant as well. The Brownfield Authority will approve and submit that, and then hopefully we'll hear from DEQ whether the grant and loan application is successful. From there, there's quite a process. The grant and loan contracts would need to be executed with the Brownfield Authority as well. Work plans need to be prepared to detail all of the expenditures, the proposed expenditures. Those work plans are approved by DEQ. The work is conducted. It's paid for by Lake State and then reimbursed through the state, through the Brownfield Authority, back to Lake State. As I mentioned, there's a key consideration, and it really does relate to that loan and that consideration. Pretty easy to accept no-match grants and pass through those, but having that loan is something that I think is important for you all to know and to do that. What is required for the full grant and loan application is a letter from the city manager or the mayor indicating support for the project, and it's compliant with local ordinances, planning and zoning ordinances. That resolution, again, by the City Commission to accept that loan, the amount of the loan, and to commit to repay that and the method of financing. And it will probably say something like revenue sharing, which I know gets everybody all excited about that. But that have to identify the source, the ultimate source of funding for that. And then there will, as I mentioned, be a development agreement between Lake State and the Brownfield Authority to assure the repayment of that loan. So the request that we made at the Brownfield Authority, and I believe is here for you, is to authorize the submittal of the grant and loan proposal to the DEQ. by the Brownfield Authority on behalf of Lake Superior State University and for the Center for Freshwater Research and Education. Thanks, finally got that out. I'm happy to answer any questions if you like.
City Attorney Canelo has a question.
Thank you. What do you expect the state terms of repayment for the loan will be?
I've been trying to get this for my house, but there's no principal or interest for 5 years. And then for the last 10 years of the loan agreement, it's prime minus 1%. So it's fairly attractive terms. Those terms are set within the agreement.
So the no P&I first 5 years?
Correct.
And then 10 years of P&I thereafter?
Correct.
Thank you.
City Manager, you have any additional comments?
Just that the recommended action for the City Commission is to authorize the submission of the Brownfield Grant and Loan Proposal to the MDEQ by the Sault Ste. Marie Brownfield Redevelopment Authority on behalf of LSSU for the CFRE. This is a recommendation that both myself and EDC Executive Director Holt support. And I know that this presentation, very well put together, very collaborative between the city, LSSU, its partners, a lot of diligence within a compressed period of time, and certainly supportive of the project, and recommend the approval of the motion.
Okay,
with
thank you.
A balance of deliverables coming in front of the City Commission over the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay, thank you, Mac.
Thank you.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes, Your Honor. I think this is a great collaboration with Lake State and with the EDC. That being said, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the submittal of Brownfield Grant and Loan Proposal to the Michigan DEQ by Sault Ste. Marie Brownfield Redevelopment Authority on behalf of Lake Superior State University Center of Freshwater Research and Education.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Are there any further questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gary,
Yes.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty,
Yes.
Mayor Bosphus,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Item 2 under communications is from Fred Benoit Sr., request to remove the reverter clause and the clause that states the Sioux Country Club has to remain a golf course open to the public.
Okay, thank you. City Manager Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. As commissioners are aware, negotiations involving the City, Central Savings Bank, and Benoit Properties in 2016 provided for the disposition of combined golf course assets along Riverside Drive to Benoit Properties International. Minutes from regular meetings held in March 2016 and April 2016, during which this issue was addressed, have been included for background. Referenced purchase agreements are also included, as is the property tax card. Mr. Fred Benoit Sr. has requested an agenda item on the removal of the reverter clause and deed restriction included as provision 7 in the included equipment and real property asset purchase agreement. Thank you.
Were you going to read the letter from Mr. Benoit Jr.?
Certainly. If you bear with me, please, while I pull up the letter. So this is an email which was distributed to the City Commission and was received by my office on January 25th, approximately 4:30 p.m. From Mr. Fred Benoit Jr., who is in association, of course, with Mr. Fred Benoit Sr. And he lays out that when the golf course was conveyed from the city to my dad and I, we realized that the project would be a large undertaking. This was a project that we both really wanted to turn around and had a concrete vision from day one. I completely understood the comments and concerns amongst the community that the property was sold too cheap and that we were paying less than land value. By Mr. Canelo implementing the reverter clause, those on the inside knew that we were unable to do anything but operate a golf course and not do any development to the land. No matter what the price we had paid, turning an operational profit was and still is an incredibly difficult endeavor. My family has lived on the course for the last 25 years, and none of us have any interest in changing the original design and layout of the course, no matter what the monetary gain might be. Since 2015, we have invested over $1 million in exchange of purchase price in improvements to the club, which are obviously very visible. With now having a cost basis greater than $1.4 million and very similar revenues to 2010, it is pretty evident that there are no plans to do anything other than operate a golf course and country club for the members of our community to enjoy. The amount invested, if anything, has overimproved the facilities and would be nearly impossible to ever get back out. Under the extreme circumstances of personal injury, accident, act of God, this reverter clause continues to loom on my mind. I feel strongly that if something extreme were to happen to my family and we were unable to operate the club, that the city should not stand to have the ability to take away what we have created and invested in. I would like to issue a formal request to remove this reverter clause on the deed, which will not change anything operationally, but will allow us to sleep knowing what we have invested in is ours and no one has the ability to take it away in future generations. Thanks in advance.
Okay, thank you. Commission. Commissioner Gary?
I have a great deal of respect for the Benoits, and they've done a fantastic job at the course. Certainly has shown, as they said, I don't know what their number is, but it's phenomenally improved. But we, Commissioner Twardy and I, and City Attorney and City Manager, and I think the City Finance Director were on the committee when we went through the time where we had to negotiate and sell the course, and we had in excess of 15 meetings, and we went round and round and round. I can't even tell you how many months. It was a year, I think, or so. And regardless of how you look at it, we came up with what the best opportunity that we could do with the timing that we had prior to the start of golf season. And we were very pleased and excited that Benoit stepped up and purchased the club and have done such a great job. In my opinion, one of the criteria that we negotiated with the price and with the sale and with everything that went along with it was the fact that that was taxpayer-owned property, and we wanted to make sure that it stayed open and available as an 18-hole golf course in perpetuity. And that was the reason the city attorney had recommended and had negotiated a deed restriction that required that, and then also the reverter clause that said if it were not able to be continued as a golf course, then it would revert to the city, or if they were to close. I feel that, especially given the time that we were in, there was a lot of pressure. The bank that was holding the paper on the place lost a lot of money. The city lost a lot of money. And I think it was a good faith negotiation. And it was less than 3 years ago, or maybe about 3 years ago. And I don't think that we should go back and renegotiate a sale that happened 3 years ago. We have said from the beginning, and I think when we met as a CREED committee, the real estate committee, that if Benoits have any type of issues as far as their estate planning, we'd certainly do anything we can to help them out with that. If they were looking at developing some housing along there or wanted to, work on a piece of that, we certainly would be more than willing to talk to them about any issues that we could take care of. We even proposed looking at a sunset clause so that it wasn't maybe perpetuity, but was a little shorter time frame so that we could make sure that reverter and deed restriction stayed in there for at least a certain amount of time. Might have been a little finite at that point. But he obviously wants a sweeping removal, and I'm not in favor of that, having been on the initial negotiation committee. And again, I think they're great developers, and I think they're doing a great job, and we as a city are very pro-business, and we're pro-development. This in no way, shape, or form is an indication that City of Sault Ste. Marie doesn't want to do business with people, but it does mean that we negotiate a contract on behalf of the city taxpayers, and I'm going to stand by what we negotiated until there's some other further reasoning rationale or further development that we can help the Benoits make. And again, I think that the last agenda item is a great example of how we and through the city and through the EDC are collaborating. We're partnering. We have stepped up, I think, in the last 10 years to try to make Sault Ste. Marie a greater development opportunity. We're trying to make our city a great place for investment. I think it's paying off. We're seeing investors coming. We are going to have a huge boom with the Lock project coming and some of the developments that we've got coming down. So I don't want anybody to think that we're anti-development, because that's certainly not what we are. But my personal opinion, and my opinion as city commissioner and one of the city commissioners that sat on that negotiation team, is that we made the best deal we could, and they did get a lesser purchase price because of that reverter and because of that deed restriction, in my opinion. So.
Okay. Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, I'd like some clarification, because I had a question for the city attorney. When we spoke, and because that was a mention within discussion, that the Benoits got a deal because of the reverter clause, and is that true, or did the reverter have anything to do with the purchase price?
In my opinion, no. The city wanted more money than the Benoits paid for the property, but that price, the higher price, if the city were able to get that, which we were not, would have come with the reverter as well.
And did the Benoits come to the table with one number, and did that number ever change, or was it always that number?
To my recollection, it was pretty much they decided what they wanted to pay for it, and the city decided to accept it.
Okay, my feelings on it, as far as the investment that the Benoits have put into it and what they've turned around on it, I don't see any benefit to the city keeping the reverter in. I don't want to see the city ever take it back at this point. I'm surprised that anybody purchased it as a golf course with as many 4 different golf courses within 15-mile radius. In the golf game, it's not like a booming business with Tiger Woods and all that gone. So what they've done has been impressive, and I don't see the benefit with keeping it in from a city standpoint.
Commissioner Miller?
I've had a couple of conversations with Mr. Benoit Sr. I want to echo Commissioner Geary's comments about the family. They've been in business since 1974. They've created a lot of jobs. I think there's a perception that they got the golf course extremely cheap, but we didn't want it. I kind of have the impression that they did us a favor. We didn't want to run it anymore, and I don't see any downfalls to the city for taking the reverter clause off. I actually had this on the agenda 2 weeks ago, the 2 weeks ago meeting, but I removed it because I wanted to do a little more investigating, and I wanted to talk to the family a little bit more. At that time, I told Mr. Benoit that it would probably be good if someone from the family came and just kind of stood before us and answered questions, and maybe put to rest any doubts that people might have, in the community. He expressed to me adamantly that no one was coming. So I don't know. I don't see any downfalls to the city for taking the clause off.
Thank you. Then let me, okay, Commissioner Twardy.
Thank you. Yeah, I was part of that 11 and a half month long negotiation committee with Commissioner Geary and Oliver Turner, and there was a lot of meetings, a lot of going back and forth, and the price did change because there was property that got thrown in at the end that we did negotiate with. So the price that they came to us with ended up bumping up a little bit because those additional pieces.
That was $3,000 for an additional 77 acres?
Correct.
And then there was a reduction in the purchase price because the greens fees that the city's manager, the country club, had collected in the prior calendar year
sort of
for
felt like
use
I had the floor,
in the
but
subsequent calendar year of approximately probably $58,000. Didn't exist anymore. It had been spent by our manager. And as a result, Benoit was required to honor.
But I don't think
these-
that I asked her any further opinion. I think that I was sort of
Okay.
talking, and I had the floor at the moment, so thank you. And I agree. I wish that the Benoits would have come. I wish that they would have talked to us. I wish that they would have been willing to negotiate with the Creed Committee. And I had several conversations with Fred Sr., asking him that, please, this is the way that this should go down. I don't really feel like my position as a city commissioner is to negotiate contracts, and I also don't feel that my job is to negotiate prior purchase agreements. And I feel like we're losing our transparency, and we're kind of going down a rabbit hole if this legislative body starts negotiating contracts. I don't feel like that's what we're supposed to be doing. And so I really feel like if the Benoits want to renegotiate this purchase agreement, they need to go through the proper channels. They need to go to the negotiation committee and really sit down. I want to know what administration's thought is. I want to know what does the city manager want to recommend as far as this, because it's not my job to just say, oh, the taxpayers, well, we'll pull the reverter off, and who knows what they're going to do to the golf course. Sure, they've done a great job. They're great investors, and they have improved the property dramatically, but that reverter and that deed restriction has been on that golf course since it was given to us, I believe back in the, like 100 years ago. That was always part of the agreement, and so us extending that onto them meant that we were protecting the taxpayers, saying that this would stay open as an 18-hole public golf course. I don't care if they do any development on there, but I really feel like they need to just follow the proper procedure.
Let me just say a few things. I was a holder of whatever the paper was at the country club, which didn't mean a whole lot. And I remember, I think it was in March, we had the meeting when we dissolved the country club for the most part. But it wasn't making any money. It was losing money. The city was putting in an astronomical amount of money. And I would think today that we'd have easily spent $150,000 to $200,000. We'd be using our budget time to discuss keeping that open, or just where they're mowing the 17th or 16th fairway where the homes happen to be. Thank God the Benoit family stepped up and bought the property. I have no problem with taking the reverter clause off my. I live on the golf course. I'm not worried that it's not going to be a golf course, because I think Fred Benoit Jr.'s letter specifically talks about it being a golf. That's the only thing it can be. And they live in this community. They have family in this community. They've put a lot of money into this community and employing people also. Why should we stand in the way of their development? And I just think, you know, we talk about growing wealth in our community, and we grow wealth through people investing in our community. And I don't want to, I'm not reaming the commission, I'm just talking about some factual things. What holds us up from growing wealth is that folks sometimes come into our community and want to spend money and get entangled with government. Maybe not, we don't operate at the speed of business sometimes, and many of you are business people. And you understand that when you want something done, you want it done, and you don't want to have to go through the ramifications of going and dealing with a government entity. Even tonight, I mean, this commission changes all the time. In the last 2.5 years, it's changed quite a bit. It's going to change again. They do not want to have to deal with changing faces when they don't know what is happening. We won't always have a city attorney that has a history. We won't always have this city manager that negotiated the contract. I just think when they are spending millions of their dollars in this community, they have a vested interest, and all they are asking for is to get the city away from it. We do not want the golf course back. I think, and knowing the Benoit family as I do, and knowing that they live here, I think it's just nothing but good can come of us cooperating with them, because other entities, I mean, we have the Lock Project hopefully happening. We see it happening. People wanting to invest in our community. And I just think, as Commissioner Gary said, you know, it's not anything to do with not helping business, but at the same point, the perception from their point of view certainly looks like that may be the case. And I think we talked about it, you know, if they develop condominiums on the golf course, it only benefits this community because it's more tax dollars. If there's a restrictive deed, maybe that lessens the value of the course, so we're not getting the total amount of tax that we could be getting on it either. So I think when you look at development as a whole, what's good for the community, the Seed Free is a tax-exempt organization, but that will draw people to our community. It's great for Lake Superior. Every full-time equivalent student they get helps our community. So, and we just, Jason McLeod was in here last week, or 2 weeks ago, talking about developing the kayak trail, the trails themselves with Ken Hopper, the kayaks coming into the eastern end. We have a venue on the eastern end of town that has become significant. The Seed Free is going to be significant, but the golf course, the restaurant, they are busy every weekend with the amount of parties and people, you know, using the facility. It's beautiful. You can see the water, the boats going by. I just think they have turned that around in a couple of years because they have the wherewithal to do it. And they're asking us a simple question of either yes or no on a restrictive deed. I say let them have it and let them run with it. Personally, I think it would benefit this community. Commissioner Talentino.
I'll mirror a lot of what the mayor said. We do have a turnover in our commission, you know, but one thing we do have as a city, no matter how many of us are here in 2 years, next year, we have policy and procedure. And for me, that's the strongest thing. And the problem I'm having with this whole situation is the procedure was not followed properly. If we as a commission are not going to take what the other bodies said, the other boards, commissions, EDC, et cetera, what their opinion is, we might as well just do this ourselves. And if we do that, the transparency of this commission is totally gone at that point. So for me, it's a procedural thing. If changes are to be done to that contract, in my opinion, it needs to go to the CREED. Something needs to be negotiated. Then it comes to us for final approval. I mean, that is procedure. So yes, you know, we do have a turnover, but we have policy and procedure within inside the city of Sault Ste. Marie. We need to stick to that policy and procedure. If we get off of that, we are opening a wormhole, one that we're not going to want to go down, and I'm not going to go down it.
Commissioner Gary?
During that process, obviously, the Benoits and the city had attorneys representing them. And if you look at the asset purchase agreement, it was 15 pages long. Every single page is initialed and reviewed, and the section on the deed restrictions was specifically long, section 7, which encompassed part of one page and another, and both the buyer and seller initialed both of those and all of those, and so they went into this agreement with eyes wide open that there was a reverter, that there was a deed restriction. And as I had said earlier, if Mr. Benoit or Mr. Benoit came to us tonight and they had a grand development plan, absolutely, without a doubt, we are pro-development and we would consider it. But there's not a request in front of us that has merit in my mind because it has changed a few different times and I'm not exactly sure what they're asking for. He's just asking for a blanket removal, and I don't want to go against the wishes of that commission and the contract that we have. This was recommended by our city attorney. It was ratified by the entire commission, and this was a deal on behalf of the taxpayers of the city of Sault Ste. Marie. So I'm not willing to go back on that unless he has a bona fide development or some type of issue he has to bring in front of either CREED or to the manager's office that we could look at individually.
Commissioner Miller.
Besides what Commissioner Talentino said about the procedural issues, my other concern is why right now? Why they seem very adamant to do it right. They want it right now. They don't want to do any type of negotiating with us. That no one wants to come to talk to us about it. And I have a lot of concerns about why the big push right now.
Commissioner Baker.
Question for the city attorney. I asked you, can you answer this, why you put the reverter in to begin with?
Well, it was very simple. I didn't want to get fired. And if I'd have left it out, and something bad had happened in a short period of time, I'm sure I would have got fired. So, since I didn't want that to happen, and I didn't want the city commission to get fired either, because if something bad had happened in a short period of time, you all might have got fired. And I didn't want Oliver Turner to get fired either, because if something bad would have happened in a short period of time, you'd have fired him. So, I put the reverter in there because this was a golf course owned by the city of Sault Ste. Marie, operated under a contract between the city of Sault Ste. Marie and an operator known as the Country Club. And the Country Club ran into financial difficulty. And they ran into financial difficulty 10 years probably before the transaction we're talking about. And they started coming to the city commission requesting an appropriation annually to assist them. In the previous 50 or 60 years, they hadn't done that, maybe 40. In the previous, let's see, we got this property in the mid-60s, I think, or 1963. So it was probably at least 40 years that the city never put a nickel into the facility that the course revenue paid for it. Course revenue declined, dramatically declined. Canadian currency dropped in value against the dollar dramatically. So Canadian play fell dramatically. And as you mentioned, Tiger Woods was no longer the big draw to golf. Young people were no longer drawn to golf in the absence of that star power. And that caused play to decline.
More golf courses in the area.
Many golf courses went out of business in Michigan. So my fear was when we tried to sell this, Oliver Turner tried to solicit as many competing proposals as could be conceivably dreamed up from all other interested parties in the area and even a little bit outside the area. And my fear was that we'd sell this, we'd convey the land to some company, and they would have such a hard time that by the end of the season or the beginning of the next season, they would cease operations. And the course, which is an investment in mowing, fertilizing, weeding, would go to seed, literally. And once it went to seed, it would be lost. And it would be owned by a third party that, if we didn't have the reverter, would have no obligation to make it a golf course, continue it a golf course, or operate it as a golf course. And I felt that if the city was selling it, that it would be important to the city's bosses that they sell it in a fashion that if it wasn't going to be operated as a golf course, for either economic reasons or other reasons, that the city would be able to take it back and find another solution to operate it as a golf course. So that was my motivation in putting it in there, was to protect the city commission from having egg on its face.
So as far as, again, I'm looking at it, I wasn't here when the deal went down, but for the Benoits to invest what they have invested in, and with golf, again, the game and how it's going, along with the competition, I just don't see the point. In my opinion, I don't care what they put on it, as long as we don't take responsibility for it and don't have to pay for it. So I don't understand. I don't see any benefit, again, for the city to keep it in. And things change.
Commissioner Miller?
The 77 acres that we were talking about, was that kind of added at the end of this, or, and they got it for how much?
$3,000, and my recollection, it came along near the end of the transaction. That was property we acquired from, it was either the Peterson or the Peterman estate. That individual, when they died, had 150 acres, and they left it jointly to the city and the tribe. And the city and tribe didn't want to be joint owners of 150 acres, so they decided to partition it. And we received 77 acres, I believe, and the tribe received a like amount in that transaction. And so It would have been nice to have had that when the course was expanded to 18 holes, because it's a tight golf course, because we didn't have that land at that time, and it's adjacent. We would have done a better job on the 18-hole expansion if we'd have had it at that time, but we didn't. But it was available at the time of sale, and Benoit's were interested in acquiring it.
Have they done anything with the 77 acres, or is it just sitting there?
To my knowledge, no.
No. Could it be developed? Could those 77 acres be developed? I know there used to be a lot of wetlands down there, so I'm trying to figure out what kind of property that is, the 77
Well,
acres.
you can always develop wetlands. It's just at a premium price.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion. Commissioner Baker.
I'll make a motion to withdraw the reverter clause from the contract on the Sioux Country Club with the city.
Is there support? I guess I could leave the chair to support it, but there's only going to be a couple of votes then, right?
Could I make a different motion?
I would do that as
If
well.
that one dies?
I'd make a different motion as well.
And then dies for lack of support, okay? Commissioner, who went, Schwarty?
Sure. I would like to make a motion to have city administration reach out to the Benoits and sit down and work out a negotiation with a recommendation to bring back to the city commission.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Discussion. Commissioner Gary.
I guess I had one question, because we did reach out to Mr. Benoit to talk to the Creed Committee, and he wasn't interested unless it was a full sweep, so.
Yeah, there's only 2 members of the Creek Committee. You know, we should have had another member on the committee, but the Creek Committee can only recommend to this commission. This commission has to still decide anything to do with city. So Mr. Benoit, as I understand, is not interested in negotiating. He would just like to have the senior, in discussion with Fred Benoit Senior, he would like to have the reverter clause off it. Yes or no question type of thing, as I understand it. Commissioner Moore.
The Creek Committee consists of yourself,
And-
Mr. Mayor.
And Mayor Pro Tem.
So if you guys are here, you're I don't understand the point of setting it back to the Creed for negotiation.
There's no recommendation.
How are you going to get a recommendation if both of them are disagreeing? There's only 2 people on the board.
We still have the city manager.
No, he doesn't vote, so
No,
we've
I know.
already had the discussion. And, the city manager hasn't taken a position, I guess, on this at this point, but, I don't know, I think it's a question, yes or no answer. I mean,
I'm just kind of confused as to how there would be any kind of resolution between
yeah, I don't see a
the
resolution.
2, and what would we be negotiating for? More money? I don't see anything else that we would, we couldn't run the course, we were losing money on the course. Again, I feel like they did us a favor, and the way the Creed Committee set up with only 2 people, I just don't see how it makes any sense to send it back when it would come back to us anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Commissioner Miller.
But 3 years ago when the contract was signed, and what Mr. Canello said tonight, there's no dollar value on the reverter clause. If we had got the full price for the golf course, the reverter clause would still be on there, right? So it's not a financial issue that Mr. Benoit's dealing with. It's not money at this point.
We got every nickel he was willing to spend. he didn't.
But if he was willing to spend the full amount, you still would have had the reverter clause in the
Correct.
contract.
Yeah, as I said, I didn't want the golf course to
See, a
be
couple of weeks ago,
destroyed
that
by
was,
non-use.
I was unsure about that a couple of weeks ago. I thought perhaps you put the reverter clause in there as collateral for a certain amount of money.
No, the primary consideration was that the golf course remain open.
Again, you know, when we're talking about the, I guess we can talk about the motion, and I feel negotiation is done. With this, he's asking to remove a reverter clause that was put on, and yeah, back in March, I believe it was discussed, a lot of, and I wasn't part of that discussion, but they wanted to make sure the course opened, so they moved without maybe looking at all the I's and they initialed everything, and they're not making excuses for that. At this point, they're just saying, because of the amount of money that they have put in it, when you look at the million so dollars that we could not put in it, that nobody else was stepping up and doing, and they did it, they would just like to ask us to remove the reverter clause. I don't see a problem with it. Leave it at that, and what more can you say? I think we've talked about how well they operate the course. I don't think anybody has a problem with that. I don't think, you know, the taxpayers, if we were to spend the money that they spent, which we couldn't do, but even we would be tussling about that every time we met, because I went through it, about how much, when you look at the golfers, the amount of golfers, the course is going to have to go some to make money. We have Pickford, you have Bay Mills, you have the Benoit family loves the course. They've been on the course. They are willing to put their money behind the course, and they are doing all kinds of things in the community to generate interest, which is good. I think it's a pretty simple question, yes or no, and I just think it would benefit the community to help them do what they want to do, and let them continue to put their money into the course, and we benefit because it increases tax dollar. Commissioner Miller.
I agree with everything you say, Your Honor, but the only problem is when I was speaking to Fred Benoit Sr., I said someone from the family should come before the commission so we can ask questions.
Yeah.
He was adamant that no one is coming.
Is that the good reason to give them to say no? I mean, it's their money for the most part.
Well, it would be nice if they were before us
Oh,
right now, so I could ask them questions.
I don't disagree with you, but
I mean,
they're not.
my mind
yeah.
would be, I'm basically in favor of removing it, to be honest
Okay.
with you.
Okay.
But if they're not even willing to come so we can ask them questions.
Yeah, I know. Commissioner Baker.
I mean, they're away in Florida. It's wintertime. I don't expect them to come here and answer questions on how they're gonna spend their money on their property. That is not my business. That is not my concern. My concern is that we never take control of that golf course again because we lose money on it. If we were to take it back, we wouldn't even get it back on the tax rolls. It would come off the tax rolls. To me, for a business to want to continue to invest any more money than they already have, with this in there, why would any business want to invest more money? Because with the risk that the city could take it back on whatever whim it is. Again, I really think that we need to focus on the future and moving forward, and this is business development. It's their money to invest. It's their property. It doesn't, you know, the game of golf is changing. In 20 years, we might only have 2 golf courses because hardly anybody plays it. We have to adapt to the future, and I think we should take it out.
Commissioner Twardy.
One more final comment. Well, first of all, the Benoits are the ones that asked for this to come on the agenda now. They could wait until they come back from Florida, and I think that that would be completely acceptable. Again, and I maybe am in favor of whatever the city administration puts out for a recommendation, but I'm not willing to just bypass policy or bypass procedure when I haven't gotten a recommendation from city administration. I don't feel like this is my job on this board. And if we start negotiating contracts at this level, again, that's not our position. You're going to have everybody asking to come and renegotiate contracts right at this level, and it's not for this body to do.
Commissioner Baker, and then we're moving on.
As far as us not, I don't understand how we can't make a decision because there's only 2 people on the Creed Committee that aren't agreeing on how to handle it. So there's not a third, there's not a third person. Well, we should have had a recommendation then. I mean, what's?
Yeah. Can the city manager make a recommendation at a future meeting? Is that what you're asking? Yeah, I mean, the commission can ask the city manager to put forth a recommendation.
Certainly, if it pleases the commission. This came without a recommendation, given the fact that there was not a clear consensus from the Creed meeting.
Well, we can have the city manager do whatever we'd like, so, Commissioner Gary.
Let me just re-review what happened at the Creed Committee meeting. We discussed it, and we discussed alternatives that we would be willing to negotiate with Mr. Benoit, given the fact that there is absolutely no supporting information for why he wants this removed. The city attorney had mentioned that, perhaps at the beginning we could have had, and I'm not saying that we should have, but we could have had a sunset clause that had a 7 to 10 year window. He said was probably, the time frame that he would have looked at. We could have put in there some provisions that if Mr. or Mrs. Benoit pass away, that the reverter goes away so that we can protect their estate. We had some other opportunities in there, and Fred Smith said no. He didn't want to negotiate.
Fred Benoit.
Benoit, excuse me. Sorry. He didn't want to negotiate. He didn't want to talk about it. So it was recommended to him that he just come forward to the commission. So for that matter, I do not blame the city manager for not having a recommendation, because this was kind of a way of circumventing the process. So Mr. Benoit asked directly that it be put on the agenda, and in that case, typically a person would be here to present their case and ask for something from the commission. It's very awkward at this meeting that there was a recommendation or a request and no requestor and nobody to answer any questions. I don't blame them because they're in Florida. But again, that goes to Commissioner Miller's point. What's the urgency? Maybe we should wait until the Benoits are back from Florida. They can put their request together. They have some actual data as to why they want the reverter and the deed restriction removed. And then the commission can review it. I think the proper procedure would be, for them to approach the city manager and for it to come back to Creed and to have an actual sit-down with bona fide reasons and requests and maybe a negotiation, but that didn't happen. And when we asked for that to happen after the last meeting, Mr. Benoit said, no, I want it all or nothing. And so that's why we're at an impasse with Creed, because the mayor, as you can see, is in favor of it, and I am not.
Commissioner Miller.
It's a question
Baker,
for Commissioner Gary, because that's something, since we weren't a part of the meeting, what is your reasoning other than the contract this is what it states and we're sticking to it because this is, other than that, what is the benefit of keeping the reverter in, other than remaining a public golf course, which is not realistic for the next 25 years with the competition that we have across?
Mr. Mayor, can I have the floor
Sure.
back?
Yeah.
So Benoits went into this with their eyes wide open. They're developers. They understand what they're doing. They signed the contract. They bought publicly owned property. As the city attorney said, the reverter was put into place to protect the public. If you want to have a bad analogy, we lose money at Sherman Park. It's a drain. So let's say somebody comes to us and says, hey, you got a nice little concession down there. Let me buy Sherman Park from you. I'll let the public use it forever, and I'll put my concession here. 2 years later, they say, no, I want my reverter clause back, and I want everything back, and they close it up, and they put up their house, and they keep it for... It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Part of the deal, when we negotiated, was that they would put money into the course, that they would improve it, that they would run it, they would go forward. I am 100% ready, willing, and able to negotiate with the Benoits. But tonight, they have not given us enough evidence that shows that the city should remove the reverter or the deed restriction that guarantees that the public is entitled to use of the property that they once owned and that we sold at a garage sale at a liquidated price. Regardless of who could have bought it, if we'd have dismantled it, we could have sold it for a lot more money. And I can't tell you the amount of people that have come up to me and said, if I knew you were selling it for $383,000, I'd have bought the doggone thing. So whether the procedure worked well or not, we did the best thing that we could do at the time. We were against financial considerations. We were against time considerations. We were against weather considerations, and we did the best deal that we could do. And I think that, yes, the Benoits came in. I think they got a good deal, and I think we got a good deal. That's the art of the negotiation. But you don't buy a car and 2 years later go back and renegotiate the car deal. If there are things that we can do to help them to develop it, more than willing to do it. I'm not seeing a plan on why this, not waiving this tonight, is restricting any further development. There is no development plan in front of us.
Commissioner Talentino.
First time I talked to Senior, he specifically mentioned the reverter clause. Second time I talked to him, he didn't even mention the reverter clause. He kept talking about the deed restrictions. You know, I think it's really silly that we sit here and bounce back and forth to each other, getting in kind of a you-know-what contest when there's not even someone standing there to ask the questions to. I think this personally is utterly ridiculous that we're even having this discussion right now without them being in this building, okay? It's just foolish, and I believe it's just senseless for us to have this conversation with no one here.
So at this point, we just refer back to the administration? I think the, pardon?
Or that's been seconded.
Under second, okay. Everybody understand the motion?
Yep. Understand it, I can't even remember it.
Oh. Is the, return it to the Creed Committee with.
So is this the motion that we're asking city administration to come back with a recommendation? Is that correct?
It's to negotiate with the Benoits, the Creed Committee, and then a recommendation from the
City administration.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Motion and support. Commissioner Miller.
And then, so then after that, it'll come back to the commission, and at that time, maybe the Benoit, someone from the family can be here? After a recommendation is made, it'll come back to us?
It'll come back to us. Okay. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Miller,
Yes.
Commissioner Talentino,
Yes.
Commissioner Tuarte,
Yes.
Mayor Bospas,
No.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Gary.
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay. After that lengthy discussion, we're into the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. The individual sole item under City Manager's report is for the City Commission to enter into closed session regarding the State of Michigan Tax Tribunal case with Goodwill Company, also known as Meyer. City Attorney Canello and myself would like to consult with the City Commission on the Michigan Tax Tribunal case with Meyer versus the City of Sault Ste. Marie and related trial and settlement strategies in closed session. The accompanying recommendation would be to enter into closed session in order to discuss trial and/or settlement strategies as pertaining to the State of Michigan Tax Tribunal case with Goodwill Company in accordance with Section 8E of the State of Michigan Open Meetings Act. And as a note, this would occur at the end of the published items in the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gary.
I assume we are not coming back after our closed session?
I'm not sure. City Attorney?
I don't think that there would be a reason to.
Okay. I make a motion to enter into closed session in order to discuss trial and/or settlement strategies as pertaining to the State of Michigan Tax Tribunal case with Goodwill Company, Inc., in accordance with Section 80 of the State of Michigan Open Meetings Act.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Talentino?
Yes.
Commissioner Tuorty?
Yes.
Mayor Bosmas?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Gary?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you. Status reports.
Thank you, Mayor. First item under status reports is an update regarding the 2019 spring cleanup programs. As an update, a limited number, 925, of $25 vouchers for the Sault Ste. Marie Transfer Station are available for city residential property owners at the city clerk's office beginning April 15th. One voucher per developed residential tax parcel will be available on a first-come, first-served basis while supplies last. The vouchers may be redeemed at the transfer station until June 29th. Vouchers can be used to cover up to $25 of disposal cost for a single trip to the facility located at 711 West Spruce Street between April 15th and June 29th. Vouchers must be used for refuse originating from the address listed on the voucher. The cost for disposal of loads up to 500 pounds is $20, and the cost for loads weighing more than 500 pounds is 3.6 cents per pound. Any cost in excess of $25 will be the responsibility of the homeowner. Also, please note that the voucher is to be used for one trip only to the landfill. Any remaining value of the voucher from that one-time disposal would be forfeited. The hours of operation and procedures are included within the agenda and will be distributed on social media. Generally, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. Identified specific Saturdays, May 4th, 18th, June 1st, June 15th, and 29th from 8 to 12. And Wednesdays in May and June from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. Thank you, Mayor and Commission.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Next item.
Second item is an update regarding the budget development and adoption cycle and key dates. As a reminder, on Monday, April 15th, the annual budget will be submitted to the City Commission. Budget work sessions have been scheduled for Tuesday, April 16th, as well as Wednesday, April 17th and 18th, if needed, on the latter two. All budget work sessions are anticipated to begin at 4:15 p.m. A special meeting to reconcile the budget has also been scheduled for Monday, April 22nd to begin at 4:15 p.m. Further, a report on the budget and setting of the necessary public hearings will occur on Monday, May 6th, with the date of May 20th being established for the approval of the budget. Please note that this will be the fourth year in which City Administration will be preparing a 2-year budget for consideration by the Commission. The period of time covered by the budget would extend through June 30th, 2021. As Commissioners are aware, the first year of the budget receives formal approval, and the second year is approved on a conceptual basis. Thank you.
Any questions in the budget process? Dates? Okay. Next item.
And the final item under status reports is a reminder regarding an upcoming joint meeting of the City Commission and the Police and Fire Pension Board. As a reminder, the Police and Fire Pension Board will be meeting on April 17th, receiving presentations of the annual actuarial valuation and a status report of the investment portfolio and market conditions. Presenters will include Mr. Michael Gano, an actuary with Gabriel Roeder Smith & Company, and Mr. Tim Bryce, Managing Director of Wealth Management of the Bryce Group. It is anticipated this meeting will be held jointly with the City Commission. It will be open to the public, as is the case with all meetings of the Board. The meeting will be held at 8 a.m. in the second floor conference room at City Hall. Thank you, Mayor and Commission.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Item I, matters presented by the public. Is anyone in the audience that like to make a comment at this time? Bonnie? Hello. If you'd identify yourself for the record, we'd appreciate it.
Oh, I'm Bonnie Raphael, IT Director, but I'm not here to talk about IT. So, I wrote it down because what I have to say I think is very, very important, and I think that a lot of us have become using it more while they're driving than before. So I had to write it down, so I usually don't read. As you may know, my daughter Kelsey was killed over 9 years ago in an automobile crash where distracted driving was the cause, and she was the distracted driver. She was talking on her phone. People know of Kelsey's story, not just throughout Michigan, but the entire country. But it makes me sad, and it really does, when I see people of all ages in the Sioux using their phones while they drive. It makes me even sadder when I read about incidences in our area where a distracted driver takes the life of someone else. I have seen people talking, texting, Facebook Living, manipulating their phones while they're behind the wheel of the car. When people do this, they are playing Russian roulette with a car. But that bullet may not kill you, but someone else. I just got the statistics out from the Office of Highway Safety Planning. And Michigan saw a 57% increase in distracted driving crashes and 67% increase in fatalities from those crashes from 2016 to 2017. I don't know about you, but that is unacceptable. That is too much of an increase. It's a no-brainer. Put the phone away. I'm asking you, Mayor Bospis and commissioners, to put your phone away for the month of April. Be an example to the community that you do not need to use your phone while you are driving. I'm giving you one of the cards if you want to pass them around. You can take more than one. These are myths and facts cards. You can put them on your visor or next to your console to remind you to not pick up that phone while you're driving. It takes 21 days to form a habit. So you have more than enough time in April to form that new habit and not use your cell phone. April is distracted driving month. And these cards I was able to send to all city police, state police, and sheriff's departments throughout the state of Michigan. That's just under 600 departments received 100 cards each. So 60,000 cards will be distributed throughout the state of Michigan for this month. I'm also asking the public to do the same thing. You see, it's not just a new driver anymore. They're learning. We've been teaching them. More and more crashes are being caused by older adults. If you think just because you've been driving for 10, 20, 30 years, you can drive distracted and not die or kill someone, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're very naive. You're playing that Russian roulette I was talking about. No, you are not exempt from causing a crash. I lost one daughter to distracted driving where she was at fault. I do not want to lose my other and only daughter to distracted driving where someone else is at fault. So you need to put your phones in park while driving, not just for the month of April. Let's make a new habit. Thanks.
Thanks, Bonnie. Anyone else? Chief Labonte.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. I just wanted to remind everybody that the fire and police departments are going to be holding yet another hockey game. That will be this coming Sunday, April 7th. It'll be at the Puller at 3 p.m. All proceeds will be going to the Mike Rader family, which we all know Mike passed away here about a month ago off duty. We do have some items that we'll be raffling away, 50-50, Chuck-a-Puck, that whole thing, but I'm also inviting other businesses who wish to offer items to raffle off during the game to do so. It's going to be a really fun time, as it is every year. I know the police department's going to have a hard time filling the roster right now, so we got a really good chance at winning this year. Does your new hire skate? Yeah, whatever. So anyway, we're going to have a really fun time as we do every year, and it's going to be a good cause as it is every year, and I hope to see everybody there. Yes.
Okay. What time does it start?
3 p.m.
3 p.m.
Yes.
Commissioner Duarte.
Are you selling T-shirts or sweatshirts this year?
We are not.
Okay.
Just because it came up kind of fast.
Kind of fast.
obviously.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Thank
yep,
you.
but yes.
Any other questions? Well, hope everyone stays safe. Don't break an ankle or anything like that in those skates. But have a great time. We'll
It's
see you
always
there, I'm
fun.
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Chief, you're not
Thank you.
skating, are you?
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, moving on to item J, matters presented by the City Commission. Commissioner Miller.
I just wanted to make a couple of comments. We always have great spring cleanup programs, but I just wanted to say, you know, we're all part of this community. If you're out and about taking a walk or a hike, pick up garbage, pick it up. I live 2-3 blocks from here, so I walk to the commission meetings and I walk around. I always bring a little bag with me, and if you see a bunch of stuff, just pick it up. You can
Good
do
idea.
That. You can do that all year long, keep our
Yeah.
community beautiful.
Yeah.
Yep.
One other comment, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Last Saturday, we were, the mayor and some commissioners joined the U.S. Coast Guard on the icebreaker, Mackinac. Second year for me, very enjoyable, very entertaining, very nice. I'd like to thank, I don't know if we send them a letter, if we send something, administration sends them something, but thanks to them and how welcome they made us feel and how great it was.
Yeah, chance of a lifetime being on a Mackinac, while you're breaking ice on Lake Superior. It's a great venue and a great trip. That's no question. Anyone else? Commissioner Gary.
I make a motion that we adjourn into closed session.
Support.
It's been moved, supported. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.